Today, we're going to be focusing on making the most of Big Interview to help you prepare for job interviews. Big Interview is one of these online platforms that our office subscribes to, pays money for, so that you get to access for free. So we're really excited when people use some of these resources and take advantage of them to their fullest, because these are available to you all the time. 24/7 access to these resources. So, you may have interviews coming up. You may not be able to find a free appointment with an advisor at Career Services because our schedules can get booked up fairly quickly. And if you have, a last minute call from an employer saying that, would love to interview you in a couple of days, there may not be time to schedule a mock interview with us. These resources, and this one in particular, is going to be a great tool to use so that you can still get some great support and resources and structure to your interview so that you feel confident, ready, prepared, and excited about doing that. So we love it when people, as I said, take advantage of these tools. I'm Dr. Joseph Barber. I'm the Director of Graduate Career Initiatives here at Penn's Career Services. So in order to get to the Big Interview resource, you can go to the Learn How To section, and there's an interview section there that will have it, or you can search for it in the toolbar up at the top of the website, and that's going to take you to Big Interview. So with that, I'm going to jump over to this. I'm going to view the resource. You can set up your free account this way. I'm going to log in. And then basically you get taken to this page. And there's lots of different versions, sections here, and we'll sort of walk through those. But in the majority of the things that you want to be doing to prepare yourself for interviewing is take advantage of the curriculums that they have. So these first are at the top, the fast track and the mastery track, are both interviewing videos and resources to help you prepare for interviews. So if I continue with my fast track, actually back here, if I just go to the fast track, videos are always going to play, but you can see along the right hand side there's a whole bunch of sections that you can go through that cover the what you really need to do to be successful as part of an interviewing situation. And what they do on the right is they give you some information, they give you a video to look at, and then you can practice, right? You can do an actual practice question.
This is a Skype interview. However, some formats come with particular.
And then as part of that question, you get to prepare and see what that looks like. So here's a practice question that they have coming up.
Describe your current or most recent job role.
And this is kind of what the structure of most of what Big Interview is that they have these pre-recorded questions that then you can answer, and then you get to record your answer, you get to do things with your answer. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But what's nice about the sort of the fast track is that it sort of touches on the essentials, right? There's the key elements that you need to know with some practice things, with some sample answers and tips to help you feel confident in what you're doing. These are all things that are going to be helpful as part of the work that you're doing. If you click on obviously there's a transcript here, which is really nice in terms of it being accessible, but if you click on the homework, there are worksheets that you can use that sort of help you break down, the job that you're applying to look at the key skills, to think about the behaviors that they want you to practice for, and all of those elements. So the structure provided by this platform is helpful because it gives you a sort of a process to follow to get up to speed on what you can do to be successful. So you can start from the beginning, you can walk all the way through, you can pick and choose the things that you want to focus on. But a lot of great stuff in the sort of the fast track, when you don't have a lot of time, but you need to get up to speed quickly. You can see this is a 16 video process. This is a 50 video in the mastery track. So as you can imagine, it's sort of more detailed, more nuanced perspectives about things that are going on here. So there'll be more things that you can look at, everything from overcoming nerves to nonverbal communication to sort of selling yourself, to behavioral-based questions. We talked about those in the last session we did this morning. And again, integrating the practice and the opportunities to sort of see yourself do that and put those tips into action is going to be helpful. The same worksheets sort of exist here, or different versions of these worksheets that can be helpful. The how to practice storytelling. So this takes you to the written curriculum that Big Interview has. So not only do they have these videos that you can watch, they also have a written curriculum that sort of breaks down their advice into sort of just readable chunks as opposed to watchable chunks. That can be helpful to sort of give you different perspectives or different ways to learn about the information. So not just the videos. Calming practices for jittery nerves, right? So everyone feels nervous in interviews. Sometimes that nervous is an excited nervous. Sometimes it's a terrified nervous. Sometimes you don't know what it is, but it's a very natural experience and feeling. These are just some suggestions from how you can take that nervous energy and make it meaningful and positive for you as you're going through that. So again, whatever the question is about the interviews that you're going through, I think that's going to be a really great way of feeling prepared and feeling confident moving forward as you go through this process. So lots of things to focus on from that mastery track there. I'm going to go back to learn here. The interview playbooks are interesting because they sort of bring together different categories of populations of people or types of issues that one might face going through the interviewing process when you're coming from a particular perspective. Maybe a career changer, maybe you are, again, a new grad and you're trying to get into a new role. But there's a lot of information here that is helpful for different populations that can be specific to the experiences that you're going through, that may help you feel confident about addressing those, or answering those, or even not addressing those as part of the process that you're going through for the interviewing. So disabilities and neurodiversity, feeling overqualified or even being overqualified, feeling introverted and not wanting to sell yourself as successfully or as overtly. These are all common challenges that people face, right? And so these types of playbooks concentrate resources and information that allow you to sort of get to a more nuanced perspective about how you can approach your interviewing from that perspective. So it's a very nice way. I mean, most of those I think are also captured in the mastery track, but bring them all together that way, I think concentrates the advice and best practices that can be really helpful as part of that process. So these top two, as I said, they are the interviewing focus parts. Big interview in its name suggests big interviewing is what it's all about, but it's all about other things as well, right? So the job search curriculum is really about other aspects of the job search, some of which we covered this week in some of our other sessions, in this case, networking and LinkedIn and online portfolios, right? So again, these videos exist to help you walk through this process. There's homework there that you can take a look at. So they have a networking contacts worksheet. We talked about this in one of my previous sessions where you can create a sort of a database of people. You can make an Excel sheet to do that, but you can look at their example and see if their example is sort of something that would be supportive for what you wanted to do. It's downloading, so I'm not going to do that. So that's just an opportunity for you to sort of explore their sheets and what that looks like. We're going to go back to learn. We're going to go back to the resume curriculum now. Obviously, you need
a standard American resume.
So that's why I think the Big Interview platform has some of this information there, because they want to take you through the whole process to the interview and beyond in terms of what that looks like. So persuasive resume writing and writing persuasive cover letters and thank you notes. Thank you notes is a great one to talk about because, again, that's a great way of building strong relationships with people in these different roles. So do take advantage of some of those in terms of the homework here. They have some of those written curriculum ideas that you can take a look at. That's going to help you think about that. And then right at the end, I'll show you their resume builder tool, which has some elements I think are helpful and some things that I don't think are as helpful, but we'll certainly touch on those as well. Back to learn. The negotiating curriculum is fundamental to, I think, the interviewing process, because at some point, there will be an offer and you will be, tasked with negotiating that or be excited to negotiate that. And it's always helpful to be a little bit more prepared than you think to negotiate before you even get an offer, right? Because sometimes the process of people putting offers out there happens as part of the interviewing process. We had a HR panel yesterday where recruiters talked about walking people through what the offer is, even while they're going through the interviewing process, to check in and make sure it's what they wanted to. And then, they were surprised if when the offer was given that the candidate tried to negotiate for more than what was agreed to. So even though our advice is, wait until you get the offer and then negotiate, in general terms, that's not always the way it works. And so being ready to negotiate and advocate for yourself even during the interviewing stage is something to be thoughtful about and be ready for, just in case you need that. So do keep that in mind as you are thinking about the interviewing process. Okay, back to learn. And then the last category here is really the first 90 days, which I think is a really nice addition to this process, because it's very exciting to get the interview. It's really exciting to get the job offer, although sometimes slightly more stressful, I think, than getting the interview, because you have to make a decision about that. But then when it gets to the how to start and what to do when you're starting, you kind of feel on your own at that point, right? You've utilized resources to get to that point. Now you're sort of thrown in there. This sort of walks you through how you can make the most of that first 90 days, right? So in the transcript here, don't screw this up, is Pamela's perspective here. In the resources section, there's some nice tools here, a 30-day checklist, for example, that talks about what you can be doing as part of those first 30 days to sort of stay on track. Questions that you can ask yourself about whether you have engaged with your supervisor, whether you have received feedback that you should be acting on already in that 30 days, whether you have understood the actual roles of the position, whether you've engaged with other stakeholders. So these types of resources I think are wonderful because they do really help you make the most of that. Going back then to so we were in the learn category here. What I'm going to do now is shift over to the practice category. In the practice category, there's lots of things that you can play around with. And I think one of the most important one is the answer builder. We touched on this slightly in the last session too, where you can begin to structure the stories that you want to talk about, right? So if I click on start here, there are sort of examples of stories that you can start building for yourself. So the tell me about yourself is a great one. That's a story in itself. It's often the first story that you're going to tell as part of your interview. And so you can then create a story that is where they've provided a little bit of structure about how you can do that, right? So the tell me about yourself, you can go through this. You can add in some text about the who are you aspect. That's terrible text. You can see a sample answer related to that, which I think is nice.
I'm a human resources communications specialist with more than...
So again, just to give you an example of how other people answered that question, we can continue through this. Talk about why you're qualified. It's important to sort of highlight those relevant skills in the tell me about yourself answer right there. Add in some more Ds. And then why you're here, why you're excited to work with us at this organization and this role is part of your tell me about yourself answer. And so once you've added in your thoughts, you can see all of your answers sort of built together into this structure. You can export that, you can print that out. You can look back at it and edit it over time. And that's a really great way, I think, of taking advantage of the structure of this tool to make you feel confident. Again, you're not writing a script for all these things, so you're not having to go through and say exactly what you want to say, but you're creating the main takeaways for the different sections of this process. So you can do that for any question as part of the answer builder. You can create your own question. You can do it for some of their pre-filled questions. But I do recommend doing that because if you can have stories, as I say, preloaded into your brain or printed out and stuck to a wall somewhere that you can pass, they will be more easy to bring to the forefront in an interview when you're stressed and your brain is a bit haywire, to be able to say, here's a good example that illustrates what I'm saying there. So a really nice way of building that one. Someone asked about the weakness question in the last one. I think you can do the same thing there so that you're not surprised by that. You don't go off track. You have your structured answer in terms of what that looks like. And again, you go through the same process to build that story moving forward. So a really great tool, I think, to do that one. Back to practice then, the practice interviews are a big part of the big interview platform, right? So these are the at-home mock interviews that you can do with yourself and your computer, that you can record your answers to, that you can take a look at those answers and reflect on those answers, that you can even share those answers with other people. That's a really great way of getting confidence. If you can hear yourself answering a question, you will remember that answer better in the next interview, right? Your auditory memory, I think, is much stronger than reading a written script or a written transcript or written notes that you have. If you can record and then listen to you answering the question, you can say, I like that. I liked it when I said this. I found that exciting. That's going to stick in your brain much more. So these mock interviews are broken down in different areas, right? So they have here the top 10 question sets, and they come at different levels, right? The questions are similar, but they may be more slightly more challenging versions of the questions that you have. And so if you click on, these tough ones, you will see all the questions on the left-hand side. My camera's in use right now. And then you will go through all these questions. You'll set up your webcam. Pamela will ask the question, you'll answer. You can edit it, you can redo the question, but then you can save it and move on. And then your answers will all be recorded for that question set moving forward. So, what are your long-term career goals? Sell me on why I should hire you over so many other candidates, right? It falls into the tougher category of, look, there are great people out here. Why do I want you type thing? So you can play around with some of these question sets in terms of, the types that they have. We talked about the top 10 questions. There are ones for internships that you can take a look at with different levels. There are uncomfortable questions, right? Questions that are sort of slightly questions that you don't want to have there. Why have you been out of work? Have you ever been fired? What's this gap? Tell me about a failure, right? So negative leaning questions, how would you handle some of those things? So again, these are all pre-recorded elements. They're things that you can touch on. And then there are good answers to these questions in many cases that help you figure out what that is. So if we go back to just the questions, sometimes they give you specific answers to those questions, right? So then you can see examples or best practices for how to answer those questions. Going back to the practice interviews, we started off with the general one. We can also do an industry one, right? And so if you're interested in going into a particular industry, some of these question sets are slightly more focused on a particular industry. Now, they're not specialized questions because you can't really get specialized questions in a general format like this that are going to be helpful, because it's really going to be down to the organization. So you might go to an energy sector one, and then maybe some of the general ones, some of the hard ones, and a question about energy. But it's really about thinking about how your answers can be specific to those different genres and those different areas. So don't go looking for exactly the questions that Amazon's going to ask you in your next interview, because you won't find those here, but you can get closer to that. Now, again, you can narrow it down by this. You can also narrow it down by specific job categories. So the ONET database is really quite interesting. And I'm going to pop over back to my slides here just to give you some screenshots of this so I don't have to find that. But ONET is sort of information that's drawn from occupational information gathered by the US Department of Labor and other categories. And sort of this is a database is maintained by, in this case, the North Carolina Department of Commerce for some strange reason. But there's a lot of data on ONET about different fields and different industries, the growth rates of different industries and different fields. The arrow here is pointing to hot technology. So you can see where are technologies right now being utilized in the world of work. So if I did a search for MySQL, you can see that these are the types of roles that value this skill set. So you can go through their skills and say, well, I have this skill. Who wants this right now? Who's looking for this? And then you can see some of these have bright outlooks. You know, these are growth fields in terms of the trajectory of the number of roles in the future. This is a prediction, obviously, but you can see where things are picking up in the future as well. You can browse categories like STEM fields, and you can see some of the areas that, again, are on a growth trajectory, like actuaries, as an example. If I wanted to go into any of these categories, I could break it down, and I could look for actuaries, for example, and then potentially, I could do one that feels more specific to that. Again, if you look at the questions, these aren't the questions that you're going to get in your actual interview, but they're going to feel more appropriate for that. So again, it's good to take a look at management consulting. They do have a few case study questions related in that, but it's not quite the same as a case study experience that you're going to have in a real interview. We do have a tool called Management Consulted that gives you case study tools as well. So that's a slightly more nuanced version of that. Under practice, the interview roulette one is an interesting one. So if you just want to practice and keep yourself on your toes, they will create a question out of the blue, right? So sometimes you can choose your question sets and create your own question sets. Sometimes you just might want to practice something that you're not ready for, just to see how well you'd answer that. So the interview roulette is a way of doing that. The My Videos are the ones that you have recorded and shared. And so that's your library of that. And if you click on those videos, you can do a self-review, and you can get an external review from other people. See this review, I'll get back. So one of the actions that you can take is to share this. And this link basically shares a link to the video itself. And you can email it to your peers or other people and say, could you give me feedback on this video? Again, I would only do that to people who have agreed to do this with you, not to random people that you're networking with. But it's great to be able to get feedback from people on different answers if you want to share that with them. So that's a great tool to use. The last thing I want to share today was the My Resume tool, where you can not only watch the resume curriculum that we talked about, but that you can build a resume from scratch by basically sort of adding in different categories into here, and you put in all your details, and then they will sort of structure that into a resume for you. You can see the summary and education experience. So they're going to help prompt you. If you're really starting from scratch with a resume, this might be something that is helpful for you in terms of doing that. They also have these templates that they have. So if you are an architect and you're looking for a creative resume, you can click on this and it will download a template for you that you can utilize. I'm not the biggest fan of templates because I don't think the formatting by itself is important with the resume. I think it's the content, and the formatting is there just not to get in the way of the content. But certainly I know people are interested in seeing what types of different approaches that people have taken. I just wouldn't necessarily invest too much in a template as being the answer to your questions about resumes. I think it really is about understanding the nature of the job and the way that you're presenting your information in a relevant way that's going to be the most important. But I did want to share that with you so that you knew that that was a tool on Big Interview.